Hi there. I did a test run, and I think if I sit in this position, it's going to work for it. I've got my camera perched on the towel racks of the outside of my sauna, but the lighting seems to be good, and I can have my hands free. So what I'm going to do is start just little short segments of the story of how I got into foot care, how it all happened, and so we're just going to start. And I believe it was 1994, and at that time I was working in a clinic in Northern California as a family practice nurse. I had a perfect job, 24 hours a week, Monday through Friday, weekends off, 8:30 to 5. But what wasn't perfect is my mother-in-law was dying of cancer, and I really felt like I needed a flexible schedule so I could help take care of her. So what I did was I had tons of seniority, and they had a per diem job open, which would have given me the ability to pretty much, so I thought, work whenever I wanted and say yes or no depending on the needs for my mother-in-law's care. So I vacated that job and took the other job, and looking back on it, I realized now that my nurse manager knew what I was, because I had told her, what my intentions were. She knew exactly what was going on, and she waited until I gave notice and did this job change. And the day that that paperwork went through, they changed their policy to not replace nurses who called in sick, or not replace RNs with RNs for budget cuts. So I went from thinking I could have as much work as I wanted to having no work at all. And they also changed the policy of not being able to go to different departments, which I had experience in all the different departments, and I could have floated, etc. So essentially, we went bankrupt. Within a couple months, we actually had to file bankruptcy. So it was one of the worst times of my entire life. I was very angry with this manager for a long time, and now I just have to thank her, because if that had not happened, my life would have not unfolded the way it did. So you have to look for silver linings, and that was a big lesson to me. So over the weeks of not working and being stressed out, I kept looking on the job line for the organization I worked with, and eventually a 12-hour-a-week job came up working for occupational medicine at a facility in Richmond, California, which was 50 miles away, and it was only 12 hours a week, but it was something. It was better than nothing. So I went down there for the interview. There was a doctor and a manager in the room with me, and they said that I would primarily be cutting toenails of high-risk diabetics, and it was listed as occupational medicine, and it turned out it was misposted. So I go in for thinking that I'm going to be an occupational medicine nurse, and I come out accepting this job because I really didn't have any other choice. But during the interview, I remember telling them, well, nurses can't do foot care. We were told in nursing school we can't cut toenails on diabetics. It has to be the podiatrist or the family member. And they said, no, that is not true. You can do it. It's just that they never taught you how, and there are no billing codes. So it's not covered by Medicare. And if you were in a clinic other than an HMO, there would be no way to charge for this, that it would be covered by insurance. So it was never a real issue, because at that time, or right up until that time, everybody who was on Medicare had a podiatrist because they covered routine foot care. And it was like that year that they quit covering that, and they only covered high-risk foot care. So that's a huge part of the story, because it left this gap in care that could be filled by RNs. However, they, all the nurses thought they couldn't do it, and they weren't trained, and there was no questions on the board exam, so they didn't teach toward it, and there was no codes. So that's how I got into it. I accepted the job, 12 hours a week, high-risk diabetic foot care, no training whatsoever. I didn't even know what the term neuropathy meant, and they put me in with almost a full schedule, like the following Monday. Like I was just thrown into the deep end of the ocean, but luckily I didn't know what I didn't know. So over time I found out like that was really inappropriate for them to do that. And so I started the job, and that's how it all started. So I'll go on next episode.